Today, we're blessed to see and hear from a freedom fighter. I mean, it's not a lot of people that have heard from him or anything like that, and it's just a blessing.
It was just a good experience to actually face-to-face meet somebody, like learning about everything that they've been through.
Really life-changing, you know? Like, you just think about it way more than you would from reading the book.
It's learning from someone that actually has been through it.
He is a living legend because of his experiences that he went through. He was one of the original freedom riders back in 1961. He took a stand. He decided to stand up for what is right. He decided to stand up for justice and equality for all. And because of the stand he took back then in 1961, now all of you enjoy the freedom to sit where you are today.
This is a great country. It is a great country for Black people, for Hispanic. It's a great country for Muslims, for Jews. It is a great country because it is a country that is made up of immigrants. It is Today, each of you, Black, white, Hispanic, Arabic, Jews, have won the worldwide lottery. And the reason you have won the lottery is that you either were born or you are now in the United States of America. There is no other place that so many people would rather be than in this country. People who risk life and limb to get here. And once they get here, they contribute mightily to what is the great economic, social experiment that is the United States of America. God bless America. As I look out on this sea of people, faces of all colors and hues, I wish that there were people in Washington who could see what I'm seeing now. I see America. I see its future. For the next few minutes, I want to talk to you about how this country came to be what it is today. It wasn't always this way. My generation, the generation of the 60s, is indeed one of the greatest generation that this country has produced. We made this country live up to its creed. We made this country see its hypocrisy. Just to give you a historical perspective and hoping that you can appreciate where you are today and what you enjoy. 60 years ago, I could not sit where you're sitting today. My neighbor, my classmate, could not be of another race. 60 years ago, there would be restaurants in this town that would not serve me, even though I may have been serving as an airman in the United States Air Force or as a soldier in the United States Army. I could not be served. 60 years ago, I could not live anywhere I wanted to live in this particular place, in this city. We had to change America, and we had to make everyone feel welcomed. And for some of us, we paid the ultimate price. In the 60s, many of us were beaten by the police. In the 60s, the police did not even pretend to be a servant to all people. Their main job was to keep blacks and keep Mexicans and keep Hispanics in their place. And when they brutalized blacks and Hispanics, absolutely nothing was done. We had to change that. And we did change it. So today we have a country that I can be proud of, that you can be proud of. And yes, every once in a while we reach a few hiccups, because unfortunately for me, and I'm pretty sure maybe for you, the worst time in this country is when people are running for political office, be they liberals or conservatives. Because in running for office, somehow or another they feel that it is necessary that they must have a wedge or an emotional issue. If you're in this part of the country or in the Southwest, that wedge issue happens to be Hispanic. If you're in the South or the East or the Northeast, that wedge issue happens to be blacks. For some reason, politicians feel that in order to get elected, they must appeal to the basis of instinct of fellow Americans. And they do that. They did it in Germany in the 1930s. When there were difficult times in Germany, they went after the historical scapegoat, and that was Jews. In the East, when they were having difficult times, they may have gone after the communists, but always you got to find a scapegoat. In this country, there exists a system known as known as segregation. You've heard of apartheid. Well, for 100 years, segregation was the norm in certain parts of this country. And so when the South Africans was looking for a system that keep blacks oppressed, they looked at this country and its system of segregation. So segregation in this country gave birth to apartheid. In the 1930s, when the National Socialist Party of Germany was trying to find its voice, it appealed to the basis instincts of Germans. They knew that Germans deep down did not like Jews. They knew that Poles did not like Jews. Lithuanians, Ukrainians did not like Jews. So they made Jews the scapegoat for everything that was wrong in Germany. And so it was in the South. If you want the white man to be satisfied with his condition, keep telling him, but you're not as low as the black man. So we had to fight against that system. Not against white people, but against a system that made my life, the life of my parents and my grandparents, absolutely miserable. My father fought in World War II. He was a Marine in World War II. When he came home in 1946, in Louisville, Georgia, he was not allowed to vote. My grandfather fought in Europe in World War I. When he came home in 1919, he was not allowed to vote. When the Tuskegee Airmen, and I hope some of you will go online and look at the movie Red Tails. It was an all-black fighter outfit. They never lost a bomber to German fighters. No other fighter outfit matched that record. Many of them were not allowed to vote when they came back home. Some of them had to give up their seats on trains for German POWs. Hence was the situation for me, my father, and his father in this country after the war. But having fought for the liberation of Europeans under German occupation, having fought for the liberation of Koreans and the Filipinos under Japanese liberation, they were not allowed full citizenship. And indeed, when it was my time to put on the uniform and defend this country, I had second thoughts. My father said to me, you know, when I got back from World War II, it was a little bit better than when I left. So I want you to go, and maybe it'll be a little bit better when you get back. And so with that in mind, I didn't seek a draft deferment like a certain person in the White House. I answered my country's call. And on my way to the ship in Savannah, Georgia, the bus I was riding on stopped at a country restaurant. And the lieutenant stood up and said, all of you black soldiers, you may not get served, so why even embarrass yourself? Just stay on the bus. I stood up and I asked the white soldiers, we are about to go to Vietnam and fight for our country. I want to know, will you fight for me now? Half of them refused to go into that particular restaurant. And incidentally, that lieutenant, father, was a member of the German Wehrmacht. He was born in Germany, and here he is telling me that I should not go into that particular restaurant. So I went to Vietnam. I served as a medic. I was wounded. And indeed, when I did get back, things began to change. And in 1964, when Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Bill, it was only then that I began to appreciate this country. It was only then that I could stand for the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner. It was only then that I could sing My Country, Tears of Thee. And certainly, after the election and re-election of President Barack Obama, then I realized that anything was possible. And somehow or another, the entire country came together. You can go online, and I hope you will, and see more about the Freedom Ride. Suffice it to say, twice during the Freedom Ride, I was almost lynched by that domestic terrorist organization called the KKK. At one point, the police took me out of jail in Winsboro, South Carolina, and took me to that mob. And then in Anniston, Alabama, that KKK set the bus afire, held the door shut so that we could not get out, hoping and shouting that we be burned to death. Years later, I was reading a book called Peerless Memory. It was about a Jewish family who survived World War II in Poland by Polish residents hiding them. In this one particular village where the Germans were, they rounded up all of the Jews, took them to the synagogue, a wooden synagogue, forced them inside, nailed the doors shut and windows shut, poured gasoline all over the synagogue, and set it afire. A young Polish boy passing by saw it, and he ran to the church. Say, come look, they're burning the Jews. The priests dismissed church so the members can go and watch the Jews be burned. Years later, I thought about that incident because that bus that we were on stopped at a roadside grocery. There was a group of people there who had just come from church. They came with their children to see the Freedom Riders get murdered. That was Alabama, 1961. The burning of the Jews happened in 1942. And that was in a small village of Poland. We have come a long ways since then. I do not subscribe to the idea of saying we've come a long ways, but we have a long ways to go. No, we have come a long ways. This is now truly America. The America that I helped to build. Yes, there are still a few problems, and yes, this past election, seem to have gone to the man or to the party who want to see Hispanics out, who are going to build a $14 billion wall to keep Hispanics out, who only want to come here and enrich this country, who want to come here and become a part of this economic miracle. They want to keep out Muslims. They want to keep out Muslims just like this country wanted to keep out Jews in the 1930s. That's right. Jews were not allowed in this country from Europe in the 1930s. Jews who were fleeing Nazi terror. Those days are behind us. I am so happy to see so many of you here. There are not many places that can see whites, blacks, Hispanics, Muslims, and Jews living together in harmony. And may the good Lord, may Jehovah, may Allah, may God never permit any one person, any demagogue, to change this and render what he has so beautifully put together. I thank you. I'd love to answer questions. We learn more about from that.
How did the risk of death affect you in your day-to-day life?
I was 19 years old at the time, and everybody knows 19-year-olds don't have good sense, right? And so I never thought of the impact that we were having at that particular time. I had been involved in civil rights for over a year, and to me it was just another thing that we would do to hammer down the walls of segregation. But it is since then that I can truly appreciate what we have done, and as I said before, how we changed the country. So the older I get, the more significant that becomes for me.
Many immigrants are facing many struggles today. What are your thoughts on the situation? Would you support an economic boycott towards the cause?
The question is, or the comment is, that many immigrants are facing economic struggles. Is that what you said? Many struggles. There's a song that we sang in our movement that became our anthem. And I don't know if there's a Spanish version of it, but the words were, "We shall overcome." Deep in our hearts, we do believe we shall overcome. This thing that's going on now with immigrants is a temporary thing. I know many hardships are faced. When politicians grab hold to significant issues, they rarely treat them with the respect that they deserve. Politicians can sometimes be very crass people. When you take a mother who has been here for 20-some years, raised her children here, law-abiding, contributing, and you send the police force to round her up, how shameful. How shameful. We always believe that right will eventually triumph. We believe that right eventually will triumph, and people will begin to see the wonderful contribution that Hispanics are making to this country. So you just keep on keeping on. Do I support an economic boycott? I think your voices should be heard. And sometimes the best way for it to be heard is that way, because we did the same thing. When a firm would not hire blacks, grocery store would not hire blacks as clerks, we boycotted them. Dr. King supported boycotts. So yes, I am in favor of that. The other thing I'm in favor of, and I hope it will eventually happen, because we're all, blacks and Hispanics are fighting the same evil, that there would be a coming together of the two groups. Because when they get through with you, they'll be back on us again. And the same thing with Jews. All of us immigrants and minority groups need to join hands. And when we do that, we can bring about change much quicker.
What other civil rights activities have you participated in?
Primarily, it was the direct action civil rights of the 60s. However, my being in business, as far as I was concerned, was a continuation. And I would tell some of my colleagues of the 60s that I'm still a revolutionary. Briefly about my personal story. In 1960, I was refused service at a McDonald's restaurant in North Carolina. Later in 1960 in Atlanta, Georgia, when I got a part-time job at McDonald's, it would not let me work up front. I started working at McDonald's, and this is for you young folks, and I'm going to implore you to have a dream. I started working at McDonald's making $1.20 an hour. I went on to own, my wife and I, 9 McDonald's restaurants. I owned 4 Marriott hotels. So when I tell my, thank you. I had a dream. And I also knew that living well was perhaps the best revenge. So I encourage all of you to have a dream. Have a dream. Work harder than the next fella. Have a dream, because you are now in a land where every day, every year, the dreams of a Hispanic, the dream of a Muslim, the dream of an African American comes true, because you are here in America. And the most important thing to help you achieve your dream is the building in which you're residing in, the school. Education, education, education. In America, you get an education and you are halfway to completing your dream. So I want you to dream.
And my question is, did surviving these events change your view on religion, and if so, how?
While I did not have a particular religious sect, I do believe in a supreme being, and I believe in the ultimate goodness of man, that particular spirit. My wife and I contribute heavily to educational institutions because we love the idea of helping others achieve their dreams. So I guess in every religion, Christianity, Judaism, the Muslim faith, what have you, there is a section wherein it talks about doing good by your fellow man. And I believe in that wholeheartedly.
What state of mind were you in to keep your composure when wax attacked you?
I'm a practical person. I'm not philosophically nonviolent, but I also knew, and this was the way things were in those days, let's say if 3 white fellows jumped on me and started beating on me, and I defended myself, and the police came, there was a very good possibility the police was going to shoot me for defending myself. So, for all practical purposes, simply to save my life, I could not fight back. I have enjoyed, oh, by the way, this is my first time in the state of Kansas. Have y'all ever heard of anything called hills? I mean, gee whiz. I have enjoyed myself while I was here. This is a very special audience to me. You have been very kind, very courteous. When I leave an audience, I remind them that I am the last of the Freedom Riders who were on that bus that was burned in Anniston 56 years ago. And so I say to you, about half the Freedom Riders have passed on. They were a total of 426. Half of them were white. Most people don't know that. Half the Freedom Riders were white. Of the white Freedom Riders, 60% of them were Jews. So it looks like every other week I get a notice that another Freedom Rider has died. So I'll say this to you, that old Freedom Riders, they never die. They just get on the bus and ride away. Thank you.